Hey everyone, welcome back to Beat the Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge. The only podcast aiming to complete every single one of the now over 400 titles that have been made available on Xbox Game Pass since the start of 2020. As always, I'm your host Andy Wood, and I'm joined by my co-host Josh.
Hello, hello.
So, on this week's show, Superman breaks super bad in Injustice 2. There's some anime shenanigans in Sword Art Online, and we pretty much give all of you £10. You're very welcome.
You're very welcome. Be deposited into your account instantly.
Yeah, that's definitely what's happening here. Absolutely. But so how's your week been this week, Josh?
You know, it's not been too bad. Back to work and all that jazz. I'm covering the showbiz for the paper, so I'm obsessed with my Kardashians and my, Harry Styles. He's got a new girlfriend. I don't know if you know. All interesting things which we're all very excited about. But how about you? How's your week gone?
Yeah, my week's been okay. I still have the same job, so I'm not interested in Harry Styles and the Kardashians particularly, but nonetheless, I'm sure that's been fun. I think my main thing this week that I've quite enjoyed is, so from time to time, we get the odd email through to our Beat the Sheet podcast at gmail.com email address, which anyone's welcome to email us on that one. And sometimes get stuff about advertising some services we might want maybe for the show. And we got one through this week, which was about getting transcripts for the show, like text transcripts, which, that's super useful. It'd be nice to be able to use them maybe as subtitles on the YouTube videos or something. And I thought, okay, I'll give this a look because they've gave us a sample here of the transcript of our last episode. So I thought I'd give it a look, see if it's any good. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to read this out as if it was me doing our normal intro to the show, but I'm going to read what the transcript said. So this is the standard intro we do every week. You've just heard it like a minute ago. And here we go. I'm going to roll straight into it. Hey, everyone. Full stop. Welcome back to Beat. Full stop. The Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge, the only podcast name. It's complete every single one of now all the 400. The titles that are made available on Xbox Game Pass since the start of 2020, as always. I'm your host. I'm the world. And I'm joined by my co-host, John. So...
Wow.
Yeah.
Hello, the world. You've got a very inflated ego. God.
What can I say?
You beat 10% more games on Game Pass than me, and you just think you're the world and call me by an incorrect name. It's just the disdain you have for me.
It's just how it works, man. You beat some games, you become the world, and now you're called John. Beat the Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge is the only podcast name. That's the only one. So
it's the only one.
It's a real cramped marketplace when everyone has the exact same name. It's hard to get noticed, but we're making it work. We're trying. But yeah, so I think I'm going to not pick up that service this time. But we'll see. Maybe there'll be a better transcript in the future.
I can guarantee you, there's no good transcription services. I mean, I'm a journalist. I need transcripts for a lot of recordings, and I have to just do it myself. There's no decent transcript service. They're all like that. So,
Well, if they want to keep flattering my ego by calling me the world, then maybe they'll eventually get a sale for.
Here's hoping.
Right then. Well, yeah, we have a lot to get through this week, so let's get on with the show.
Okay, this week we have 3 new additions to the Xbox Game Pass service, and they are eFootball PES 2021 Season Update, Injustice 2, The Little Acre, and what should have been Killer Queen Black, which was due on the 5th of January, as we told you last week, has been pulled. The developer say it needs more time to optimize the experience for consoles. So there is no Killer Queen Black this week. I'm very sad about that because I loved that game and I was looking forward to talking about it. But alas, we do have 3 more games here. And what did you make of this new batch of additions?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad set of additions. It feels very kind of... It's like, just replacing stuff that's recently left for the most part.
Yeah.
We've got, PES 2021 coming in to replace PES 2020. Injustice 2 is obviously the game that's replacing Mortal Kombat X. I'd predicted it'd be MK11, but I suppose this makes more sense. We'll probably get Injustice for a while, and then they'll probably swap that out for Mortal Kombat 11. So that's fine. And then you've got Little Acre, which is a point and click, and I hate those games. So that's me on this one. And also the Killer Queen Black delay, I mean, that's a good thing. I'm always happy when people delay stuff because it's not ready. Better to do that than do a big old Cyberpunk. So on the whole, not too bad.
Not too bad, is it? As you say, it's pretty iterative on what's already in there. I'm happy because I'd already played Injustice 2. PES 2021 is the same game, so I basically played that. And the Little Acre's an hour long, so this was a very simple week for me in terms of new additions. It means we have reviews for all three of these games. We can go into depth on each of them. Although how much depth we have for eFootball PES 2021 when we literally reviewed PES 2020, 4 or 5 shows ago? Not that long ago, but we'll try and give you some additional thoughts. What did you make of PES 2021? Did you find anything different about it?
I mean, this is pretty much the same game, right? I mean, to be fair to the people making it, they did make that very clear. You know, this was called a season update rather than a full release. It was launched at £25 and it quickly dropped even lower. Like I've seen this available for like £15 already, and it only came out a few months ago. So that's all fine and good. It's better than the really shady way EA used to do it, where they just kind of tag Legacy Edition onto their games and charge £50 for them, and it was actually just roster and kit updates. So you know, that's fine. From my experience playing this, I think it's very much the same game. The menus are exactly the same, different color scheme maybe. That's about it. The commentary is the same, and it remains the worst commentary in all of sports games easily. The licenses, I think they've lost Inter Milan at AC Milan, but they've gained Roma, so they're just doing weird stuff with the Italian league.
Is that a win? Does that even count as a win? You lose to Milan, but you gain a Roma.
I mean, you've lost 2 teams and gained 1, so it's got to be a loss overall, I guess. But good for Roma fans, yeah. I suppose. So yeah, you know, that's all pretty much the same. Not much difference there. And I've got to say, on the pitch, I feel like this game feels exactly the same. There was reports that I saw online of people saying that it's more responsive now and the defending is more intricate and you've got to be more careful on defense. Like, I don't know, maybe we're just more casual players than those people, but unless you put both of these games side by side, I don't think you're going to notice the difference, in my opinion. How did you feel about that? Did you spot anything more than me?
Really? I mean, the idea that it's more responsive is strange because I actually felt it was a bit less responsive. I don't know if that's because earlier this week, I picked up FIFA 20 off EA Play to quickly beat that, not knowing this game was coming. And so then I got double saddled. So I've almost inadvertently played these 2 games against each other. And yeah, going to PES after playing FIFA 20, these guys feel a bit heavy and a bit sluggish to me, bizarrely. I just don't. When they are fast, they're fast almost to the point where you can't control them anymore. So yeah. It's a weird one, to be fair, but I can't find many differences on the pitch. It's pretty much the same game. I can't find much there at all. I found the actual squad updates frustrating as well because they're not taken all the way up to the end of our most recent transfer window, which obviously was pushed back this year because of coronavirus. I played a game against Atletico Madrid and Thomas Partey was in the middle of the park for them. I was like, well, he's at Arsenal now. You know, if you play with Man United, Edison Cavani doesn't play for you. I mean, it's just bizarre, these sort of simple little things, which could have even just been patched out later on if you needed to get it out for September. It's just a little bit odd, if you ask me.
Yeah, I had the same issue with that. Like they do seem to be doing roster updates because, I mean, obviously they need to. It's standard in sports games now, but they are definitely lagging behind. I don't know how far exactly they are behind, but even playing for, I was just using the Borough team, the Middlesbrough team on this, and we've got players playing for us right now that aren't in that squad. So it's just a bit, you know, it's a bit of a shame when all you're releasing this year is a roster and kit update. You've surely got to keep those rosters up to date, because if not, what are you even selling? I mean, it's a bit of a misstep.
Well, exactly. That's it. Inside, I mean, I imagine they'll wait until the end of January to get all the January window transfers in as well. But they have the option to just regularly update these squads. I don't really know why they're not. I mean, certainly this is the first time we booted up the game. Literally today, we should be having the most up-to-date squads on that first boot up. I get it, if you bought it in September, you have to actively choose. But it just seems like an odd thing to me. That's very Konami to just put something out and then forget it even exists as they focus on pachinko machines somewhere else. But other than that, this is PES, man. Like, there's Master League. Master League is still real good. It's a better career mode than FIFA's career mode. My club, though, is significantly worse than Ultimate Team. So you've got that trade-off. And the Be a Legend mode where you control one single footballer. I've never met anybody who likes that mode in either PES or FIFA. So I don't know why these keep getting made. It's the worst mode. Nobody wants to play as one player on a football pitch. It's the worst part of the game.
Yeah.
So why do you want to do that? I never got this. It's so frustrating.
It's one of those things that I felt like when it got added, because I mean, I think I'm pulling a number out of my head here, but I feel like that got added about like FIFA 09 times. So like about 12 years ago or something. And even then I thought, well, this is obviously a gimmick that'll just, disappear. They're just trying to do something new. They're like, you can play as one person and it'll just fade away. And then nope, they're still making it. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't know a single person who chooses to play that mode. I don't know anyone. It just seems ridiculous. Like some positions on the pitch, you're just not gonna do it, right? Like, why would you ever be like, I know I'll play the entirety of a football game as a defender, a whole season just as a centre back? Like it would just be the most
just
miserable
headed away.
Like honestly, I just don't get it at all. It just seems weird. But yeah, as you said, this is pretty much the same game as PES 2020. If anyone wants to go back to our PES 2020 review for a bit more info on that, we reviewed that on episode 27. So about 5 episodes back now. And yeah, we spent a bit more time digging into the gameplay of Pro Evo on that one, really. But yeah, this is more of the same. I think again with Pro Evo, the main thing it has over FIFA is that it kind of feels like a more natural game of football. Like there's the ball in particular, the ball feels like an actual ball in Pro Evo, which I don't think it does in FIFA. You kind of kick it around. It feels like it's got a weight to it. You can hold in the left trigger to choose anywhere in like you hold the left trigger and then use the analog stick to choose exactly where you want to pass the ball. So there's like a nice precision to it there, but it's just missing all the bells and whistles, which, as I think you said in the 2020 review a few weeks ago, they're actually a lot more important than you feel like they're going to be. Having the real licenses and the real stadiums and players and stuff, it just feels a lot better, even if the on the pitch gameplay in Pro Evo, is good in its own way.
Yeah, and actually playing this alongside FIFA 20, I mean, when I reviewed PES 2020, my most recent FIFA game was 16. Playing it alongside 20, these two titles aren't even close. I think FIFA plays a much more enjoyable game of football on the pitch. It's a little bit more arcadey, which is my personal taste. It feels more like football because the licenses are there. The money has been spent to make it feel like a match day experience. It's all tied in. The Champions League theme blurs out when you play a Champions League match. It's all part of the fun of the actual sport, especially in a time when you don't have that, because we can't get to matches and all we can do is watch things on TV where nobody's there. Yeah. To have these raucous full stadiums and it all feel realistic and normal is actually quite comforting. And PES doesn't really give me that. I just feel like I'm listening to two idiots on commentary, surrounded by players who look nothing like their likenesses. Where I could still manage as Diego Maradona, even though he's very dead now. He was dead. So I just find it all a very odd experience. I can't imagine why anybody would play PES at the moment over FIFA. Especially now that they're both included with Game Pass, especially if you've got Ultimate at least. Yeah. You're going to download FIFA 20 and you're going to put a lot of hours in. I put 10, 12 hours into that without even meaning to. I was counting the hours on PES. I could feel that I was getting a little bit fed up with it. So yeah for me... Fair. For me, this is kind of soured me on it as a whole. So I've knocked PES 2020. I gave it 7, but I'm going to give this a 6. I actually do think there's work to be done for Konami and their team to actually catch up to where FIFA is at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. There's definitely, like you said as well, the overall package here just doesn't quite add up. And one of the things that hit me this time was I tend to play a lot of my FIFA and PES games as like lower level teams. I'm not typically playing as like a Champions League caliber team because, I mean, I've supported teams in the Championship for ages. And I mean, even when I used to play FIFA Ultimate Team, I used to like playing as the bronze level players that were like rated like 60-ish. Yes. So like I like playing like garbage level football. And I mean, Pro Evo only has up to the Championship in the English football pyramid. There's no League One or League Two. You can find the odd League One team in the other teams menu. And I think it's just teams that got relegated last season because they've still got them from PES 2020. So it's like, it's missing quite a lot of teams that people over here in the UK are going to want to play as. It's also missing the entire German league, which is appalling. I only noticed that.
That's terrible.
I was like, what the? I noticed that Bayern Munich were in other teams and I was like, hang on, surely no, the German league is just not there. It's wild. So yeah, I'm kind of inclined to agree with you, to be honest. You know, I do enjoy playing Pro Evo on the pitch. I haven't played FIFA 20 or obviously 21, the even newer release yet. So maybe I'm in the state you were in with PES 2020, where because the last FIFA you played was a couple of years old, you were still like, oh, this is fine. You know, maybe if I do play an up to date FIFA, I'll realize this is a bit of a car crash. But since I haven't done that yet, I'm gonna stick at a 7 for this one. I gave a 7 to 2020 as well. So it's just more of the same. You know, if you were enjoying 2020 before it left, by all means pick this up. If you weren't enamored with it, just don't bother. Simply enough.
Fair shout. Okay, on to our next game, Injustice 2. Now, this is a game which I completed pretty much on release when it came out. I think it came out 3 or 4 years ago. It's quite an old title at this point, but this is developed by NetherRealm, who are the Mortal Kombat studio. So it's very much in that vein. It plays very much like a Mortal Kombat fighter. But Andy, you've got a lot more recent experience with this title than I do. So why don't you kick off your thoughts first, maybe jog my memory as you go?
Yeah, happy to do that. So Injustice 2, as you said, this is a few years old. This came out in 2017, I think, which, gotta say, from playing it, you can't tell. This still looks great. The characters in particular, some of them are like photorealistic level good. So that's impressive, definitely for 2017. Never mind now. And yeah, you know, I mean, Injustice, this is made by the same people who make the Mortal Kombat games. So if you play recent Mortal Kombat, the kind of combat system here is going to be familiar to you. I've said in our Mortal Kombat conversations before that it's not my ideal type of combat. I find the combos too rigid. Like there's no real flow to it. You kind of have to know the combos or else your character will just abruptly stop. Like there's absolutely no room for button mashing in a Mortal Kombat or an Injustice game. And I'm not looking to commit enough time to this to learn all the combos. So I still just kind of mash away and hope for the best. But nonetheless, it's a good package here. It's good stuff. It's got quite a fun story mode. I enjoyed the story mode in this. I'm always happy to play anything where Superman's a dick. I think that's always fun because good guy Superman's too powerful. So having a bad guy Superman is always more fun for me. And yeah, throughout the story, similar to Mortal Kombat, you just jump around through. You play as about 12 or 13 different characters or so in the story. And, you know, it's similar to Mortal Kombat again. You jump through cutscenes, then into fights, then into more cutscenes and stuff. And it's good fun. It's fine. The main thing I actually found in this, which is really good, is there's an extra single player mode, which I think they call it Brother Eye, which is a really stupid name Batman has for his computer in this game. I don't know why it's Brother Eye. It sounds stupid, but that's what it is. But yeah, so this Brother Eye mode is basically like it's like a much larger scale single player mode where you can pick from a bunch of different planets and they're all meant to be like different versions of Earth and they've all got their own versions of all the superheroes. And you pick one and then you basically just go through different challenges on that planet, which basically just means you go for a run of different fights against people in the game. But they've often got like different like characteristics, different things happen in the fights. Like you have to adhere to certain rules, or maybe like health drops from the sky. Sometimes you have to like go over to it to heal up, and you know, it just adds a bit more kind of fun, like randomness to the single player side of it. Really, it reminded me quite a lot of the Soul Calibur adventure mode. You know, it's just a big extra single player package to go with the story. And in this one as well, you level up and you unlock like more equipment and gear for your characters and costumes, and you can like equip that to make your characters more powerful. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that fighting games don't usually do, because obviously as soon as you start playing online or competitively, you're going to turn all that stuff off anyway, because you can't win an online match because you've got a massive batsuit that is loads more powerful than someone else's. But I'm really just a single player fighting game person at this point. I don't have the patience to get online multiplayer level good at these games. So I'm always happy with some deep single player stuff. So yeah, on the whole, I've came out of this pretty positive. I think it's good fun.
Yeah, Injustice 2 is a good title, and you're right to mention the Brother Eye mode, which very similar, as you say, to that. I think it's called like a Spirit of Souls in Soul Calibur 6 or something like that, where there's loads of little conditions, like the ring will be slippy or there'll be stuff to pick up. Just a load of different little tweaks to the just regular fighting kind of tedium, which I like and does add a lot of value to single player. The roster is huge. You've got basically every DC character you could possibly want here. I don't think they're missing anybody. I prefer my Marvel to my DC, but I think they've got them all. I don't think anyone's missing here. They'll all pop in during this story mode, which is pretty deep. To give them the due, this is as close to an interesting story as I've ever played in a fighting game.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it's pretty throwaway and so reference deep that you can't get into it anyway, a la Tekken 7, which is just too dense for anybody who's not played all of Tekken and spent all their waking life thinking about Tekken to truly understand.
Yeah.
But Injustice 2, if you just have a vague idea of superheroes in the DC universe, you'll be in there. You'll be able to play along, follow along quite easily. As you say, Superman, total dick. That's what he is in this one. He's gone bonkers, basically. He wants to lock everybody up. He wants to kill everyone. He's really horny for some reason. I always find whenever Superman is turned bad in any entertainment medium, his horniness ramps up. It's like that's my main defining characteristic of bad Superman. He wants to just nail everything. That's like his mid. Like when he's good, he can't control it. He can keep it in. Yeah. But when he's bad, like he's just eyeing everyone up. But that's oddly the main thing I remember from this mode is that I seem to remember Superman being well horny. I don't know why. Was he that horny?
Honestly, I don't even think he was that horny, to be honest. I think you've just built up a really horny Superman in your head over the years. Like, he's like a little bit horny. Like, there's kind of, he's sort of, I don't know, there's some stuff with him and Wonder Woman. You can see a bit of horniness seeping through, but it's nothing too bad. I think you've just built up some sexy Superman in your head over the last few years since you played it.
It's just I've managed to mix my fan fiction with this actual game or something like that. But the actual story, though, on a more serious note, is fun. It's quite dark. It's quite depressing.
Yeah.
You do have to decide which side you're on, with it being kill everybody as Superman or Batman, strangely being the good guy who's all for, maintaining decency. It's a fun little role reversal on that because usually it would be the other way around. But this time, they've dug into Superman being the asshole. There's only really one correct answer, though, in the show. You can't. Have you seen the Superman ending to this game? It's like horrifying.
I've not actually watched it yet. I was gonna watch the cutscene online because I haven't done it yet. But as you said, the general idea of this story is that Superman and a lot of other characters that side with him have basically just decided that the best way to stop crime is to murder anyone who does any slight crime immediately, and then crime will stop. So, they just want to murder everyone. And yeah, I can tell that ending will be horrific, and I definitely will watch that cutscene at some point. But as you said, this is, the right choice is obviously the Batman choice. Batman's a man who in Batman Arkham Knight managed to somehow develop a tank that wouldn't kill people when you ran them over. That's how much he cares about not killing people. Beside the fact that tank definitely killed everyone, he doesn't think it did, and that's important. So yeah, as you said, it's a fun story. It's one of the more interesting stories I've played in a fighting game. It definitely has problems because fighting games aren't an ideal way to tell a story. It kind of It spends about 75% of its time building up to something and then really wraps it up in about 5 minutes in quite an unsatisfying way, I would say. But nonetheless, it's still a fun time to play through, and you get to try out all these other characters and kind of, they all have good, fun move sets. Like, I think they all feel quite original. Everyone tends to have like a special move they can do with it's like the B button on Xbox, and they all do something a bit, Batman will bring out batarangs, Harley Quinn throws some like meat, and these rabid hyenas come and eat people and stuff. And it's, it's fun. It's original. I enjoy it more than Mortal Kombat for what it's worth. I think just the variety of characters makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I prefer this to Mortal Kombat as well. I think I got really into playing as Green Arrow for some reason. I think he had a load of easy bow moves I got quite good with. So he was my go-to character. But yeah, I think this is a decent title. It plays well. It's enjoyable. The story is fun. It looks fantastic. If you're into a fighting game and you want something a little bit different, Injustice 2 is up there with Soul Calibur for me as one of the best on the service. I think it's probably just beneath it. But yeah, this is a real good time. And, even better still, if you do pick that Superman ending, he does like to turn people into mindless slaves because he's a horny man. So that's a 7 out of 10 for me, just for that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I gave this a 7 out of 10 as well. I think that the single player content in this is actually better than Soul Calibur's, but I do prefer actually playing the game itself of Soul Calibur. I think it's a better fighter. So yeah, it comes out at a 7. It's edging close to an 8, but as I said, I don't quite get on with this quite rigid fighting style that the NetherRealm games have. So 7 out of 10, definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Okay, our final game this week is The Little Acre. Now, this one I hadn't heard of. It came absolutely out of nowhere. This is a beautifully hand-drawn point and click game, which is fully voice acted, which they really made a big deal about, despite the fact most games are that now. But that's adorable. I like that. So yeah, what did you make of this? I know you're no big lover of the genre.
I mean, I truly do despise point and click games. My main problem with them usually is that they just have these horrendously obtuse puzzles that no actual human can solve. You know, you need to just do a series of nonsense steps that don't make any real sense, and then it'll just work out. Now, this game, to its credit, it doesn't really do that. This feels like it's targeted at a bit of a younger audience. It's a very short game as well. A blind playthrough of this would take you about 3 hours. Like if you're not checking any hints or guides, maybe even a bit less. With a guide, this takes an hour. It's a really quick, breezy playthrough. And yeah, I only think it does that stupid point and click thing a couple of times. There'll be situations where you'll pick up an item and you need to like interact with something else in the room, and it just doesn't make it very clear what you can actually interact with unless you happen to move your cursor over it and stuff. But really, that's nothing compared to the struggles I've had with some of these games. So I'm happy enough with that. As you said, it's all kind of hand drawn. It's really looks really nice. It's really well animated. They do quite a cool thing where there's two different worlds in the game, and the characters look completely different in each of them. So they've essentially got to make all the characters twice, and I think they handle that quite well. So yeah, on the whole, considering it's a point and click and I hate them, I thought it was fine. My main issue though is that as happy as I am that I was done with this in an hour and a half, that is way too short for a game. It doesn't really, it almost sets up quite an intriguing story and world and then doesn't have any time to do anything with it. So it just has to wrap like really quickly. It almost feels like, they made like all the story and then someone in the back just went, we need a release next week. And they just had to like throw an ending out. It's just, I don't know, bit rushed there. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, and like when we reviewed and played Minecraft Dungeons last year, we kind of described it as baby's first Diablo. In many ways, the Little Acre is baby's first Tim Schafer game. Like, it's so simple. It holds your hand pretty much all the way through. If you're playing with a guide or if you're using the hint system, then Christ, you don't need to think at all. But even if you're not, the actual solutions, there's only 2 or 3 things you can pick up in any given area, which can only interact with so many things. Even if you're just blindly tapping on the screen, you will come to the answer eventually. It's that sort of point and click kind of experience. There's not a lot of that like lateral thinking here. You kind of just need to come up with the obvious answer. But at times it can be a little bit obtuse, but very, very rarely. I think anybody could get through this without much of the way of trouble. And I don't mind that. I don't mind the fact that it's not being deliberately ridiculous, that it is trying to think things through logically, that it's not being just annoyingly dismissive of my time and actual intellect in any way to try and do this. So I don't mind that. I will say that I agree with you. This is real short, but for something so short, nothing really happens despite the fact that you're 90 minutes in. It's packed full of incident, but nothing seems to happen. They set up this other world, which you spend all of 10 minutes in. Most of the time you're in and out of it very fast. You flick between the 2 characters, which is the dad, who I thought was the brother for a good half of this back in. It's a dad looking for his daughter, but I thought it was a brother looking for his sister. So that was never, that you're in trouble when I can't even tell what the relation between these characters is. But you just don't do enough with this weird little world they created. And I kind of wish they did more because it's not a bad idea. As you say, the art style changes from them being these full-size humans into being cutesy little characters you'd see on like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's a nice idea, and I just felt they maybe could have done more with them.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, this kind of feels like a demo or a trial for what the actual game is going to be. And that's a bit of a shame, as much as I don't want to have to play more point and click. I almost feel like they did the hard work, really, of setting out this concept and this idea of the 2 different worlds. And for the time they use, the other world is fairly well realized. It's starting to have some lore to it, and then they just kind of have to just suddenly go, oh, there's the bad guy, we beat him, yay, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's the game then. It's just a bit odd. I wonder if that was always the intention, or did they just want to hit a certain deadline for release, or what? I don't know, but it's just a bit of a shame.
Well, I mean, they kind of threw in the villain's motivations like in the last 5 minutes. Yeah. I didn't even know why he was doing what he was doing until they went, oh, he's doing it because of this. And then I went, oh, I'm going to solve the problem like this. And 5 minutes later, the actual arc of the story and the close of it had come within 5 minutes of each other. Like the big point where you find out what the villain's plan is and the solution to that problem happened within 3 or 4 minutes of each other. That's so fast by anybody's standards. That's really fast.
Yeah, like you can't really stress that enough. Like literally, they do some exposition on what his goal is as part of the solution to solving it, don't they? Like they literally explain it to you so you can immediately fix it. It's just so quick. It's insane. So yeah, I don't know. I found that a bit odd and a bit strange, but I'd be interested within the constraints of me not liking point and clicks. I'd be interested to see what these guys do next. I think what they did put together here is pretty good, but I can't give a good score to something that's like an hour long and doesn't really have a story, sadly.
Yeah, what's here is fine. I don't think it's funny enough. None of the jokes really landed for me. And there's only 2 or 3 characters, and only one of them had any real personality, and that was the kid. Everybody else was maybe the dog. But other than that, like everybody else was pretty blasé, pretty dull.
Yeah.
So I fear for the actual writing quality of the team behind this. And maybe the reason it's only 90 minutes is because they just ran out of jokes and they only had about 2 or 3 in the first hour anyway. So,
yeah. I mean, often the best kind of bits or the funniest moments were just more to do with the animation than the script. Like there's some good animation in this, like sort of like wacky kind of shocked faces from the dog, or like there's a segment where the dog's trying to stop the kid from killing herself because she's making breakfast. And like, it's actually, that's the best humor here. Like the actual script doesn't really contribute barely any of it. So yeah, you could be right on that one.
But it's fine. It's very quick. It's a very easy 1,000 gamer score, which we'll get to in a second for anybody who's chasing them at the moment. It's perfectly adequate. I don't dislike it. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It's not a bad point and click game, but I can't say it really whetted my appetite to play more from these guys, except for maybe the art style is really quite beautiful. Maybe if they hand over the writing duties to somebody with a sense of humor, we could actually get something pretty good going on here. Because as you say, the animations and the actual art style is real gorgeous, beautiful game to look at.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm the same. I gave this a 5 because honestly, there's not enough there to give it any other score. You know, it doesn't do anything to elevate beyond average, and it doesn't do anything bad enough to go below it. It's just a 5.
Okay, so moving on to our leaving soon titles. We have 3 games leaving on the 15th of January, so you've still got a little bit of time to put some hours into them should you want to. And these 3 are My Friend Pedro, Sword Art Online, Fatal Bullet, and Tekken 7. So last week we did cover Pedro and Tekken. If you want to hear our thoughts on those titles, check out last week's show. We think they're both a pretty good time, but do check it out for more detailed analysis. This week, though, we're talking Sword Art Online, Fatal Bullet. Now, this game is weird in many ways. This is a weird setup for a game. This is a MMORPG, which you play entirely on your own. And it's set within an MMO. It's like Inception MMO going on here. Yeah. What did you make of it?
Yeah, so like you said, this is basically a single-player RPG about characters playing an MMORPG. So that's kind of how that works. And, you know, first of all, before we even get to the game, I actually kind of love that premise because I really like MMORPGs, but I couldn't possibly commit the time to playing a real one anymore. It's, you know, you just can't. It's got to pretty much be the primary game you play every week. You can't really put any time into anything else. I used to always have an issue where if I was paying a monthly fee for an MMO, I'd have like a sense of guilt that I need to play it because I'm paying monthly for it. So then I just end up resenting it. So, you know, I'm all aboard for the MMO except it's a single player game thing. Sadly, this game, I'm not for it. So, I don't know. I think that even though that's quite a fun idea, this game drops the ball in near enough every way that it possibly could with that idea. I don't think they do anything to highlight the strengths of that type of game. And yet there's things like grinding to level up, which, you know, common sense for me would say if you're making a single player game, you can try and streamline that out a bit. And they just don't. They just leave it in. They're just like, yeah, you're going to grind to finish the main story. And it's like, that's just so weird. I don't know why you would do that. But yeah, I came out of this one pretty cold overall.
Yeah, the thing about this is strange. Like, as you mentioned, the single player MMO is an interesting idea. My problem with the Mamorpaga, as it was once known, we don't really call them that anymore, do we? But my problem with that genre is that it always took the worst parts of dungeon crawlers and the worst parts of RPGs and said, here you go, pay a monthly fee for it. And that's why I never massively got into it as a concept, as a genre. And Sword Art Online, in many ways, takes the worst parts of a dungeon crawler and the worst parts of a single-player RPG and makes you play them in this ridiculous format. So it apes the style very well. It feels like a Mamorpaga to me. It's very much within that wheelhouse. I just don't know why they had to do that. It could have been, as you mentioned, this streamlined, more enjoyable experience, which takes the whole clan building and going out to raid quest to get treasure and loot and all that. It could have done all of that, but done it in a way where you weren't restricted by both your AI partners and the actual grind system, which you need to actually start getting to the levels to play this game towards the end of it. It's just very frustrating on that front. I suppose the other thing as well, this is based on an anime property, Sword Art Online, which I've never played or heard of, never seen it. All I know is they kind of explained the plot to the first Sword Art Online as this single player, this MMORPG where everybody was stuck in it and they were dying and they had to get to the top of this tower. And that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds like a real good idea for a TV show / video game property. Why didn't they do that? Because that sounds real fun.
No, exactly. So if anyone cares about Sword Art Online spoilers, maybe skip ahead a minute because I'll quickly go into this. But yeah, I've seen 3 seasons of this show now, and this game's based on the 3rd season. Now, yeah, season 1 is literally they all put these headsets on to play this VR MMO game, and it's like hooked into their brain. And then some psychopath who made the game basically announces immediately on launch day that everyone who's put the headset on is now stuck in the game and they can't take the headset off because they'll die. And also if they die in the game, they'll die as well. So they've got to get up to the top of this tower. And season 1 of this show is great. I thought it was awesome. But the problem is that they just completely they finished that goal at the end of season 1. So then the remaining seasons are just the characters being like, let's play some more games online together. And it's like, why didn't you make the whole show the concept of season 1? That's such a good idea. So yeah, so this is a game based on the 3rd season, which is kind of just them all playing a different online game with much lower stakes. And that's just not as interesting. And, you know, to be fair, there is other Sword Art Online games based on the earlier seasons. I don't think they're very good. I hear that this game was actually moved to this game was given to a new developer because the developer on the first couple, they just weren't putting out a good product. So sadly, there's no good version of that one to play either. But yeah, as you said, I mean, the story in this game is it's just not interesting, frankly. And also there's just an outrageous amount of conversation. It's just everyone just talking about pretty much nothing for the whole game. And I mean, you can't help but want to skip it after about the first hour, really.
Yeah, the story here is not fantastic. I mean, I obviously have no reference to the characters who you meet. Perhaps these are all big famous people in the TV show, the anime, maybe they are, I wouldn't know. All I know is most of them never stop moaning. Most of them never stop whining. Christ, I don't know who wrote the poor female characters in this game, but they all just endlessly whine about how they hate themselves. To the point where I think that the person who writes it must really hate women to like a bizarre level. But nonetheless, we'll try to put that to one side. The bigger problem here is that there are no stakes to the story. For practice, I've not quite finished this. There's 22 main quests. I've played 17 of them. So I'm a very good chunk of the way through this game. And at the very end of the 17th quest, they introduced the plot. It finally came. Yeah. What the actual idea of this game was, that there was going to be somebody as well who's infiltrated the world. It's not a massive spoiler because up to then, nothing happens. You just play the game, making friends.
Yeah.
So I find that mind-boggling that I've played this for 14 hours pretty much and no plot has arrived. And now finally they decide to give me what is an interesting idea. I mean, it's the same plot as the first season of the anime, quite clearly. But at least it's an interesting idea. They're going down I'm going to kill some people in this game route again. Great stakes, great idea. Go straight ahead. Why wasn't it introduced right at the start? And why have I had to sit through endless dialogue boxes of me and my robot buddy who calls me a master and I wish he'd stop just all the way through. And it's just cringily awkward so many times.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, so to go a bit into that, because obviously, as you said, you've got like 5 quests left. So what they do at the point you're at now is they very quickly shoehorn in the plot of actual season 3 of the show, which is to do with this person who is shooting people in this game and then they're dying. So they actually they just very briefly bring in the season 3 plot there for a couple of quests, and then they kind of just get rid of it again because because they just they let you play a side mode as one of the characters from the main kind of anime and manga. You can like literally go back to the main menu and play a small game with him to do that anime story, and then you just come back and do stupid stuff with your friends again in the main story. So yeah, I mean, it's just so uninteresting. I mean, considering I've watched the show and I like I said, I really like the earlier seasons as well. Like I should be the target audience for this. I even said I like the idea of playing an MMO, but it's a single player game. And yeah, it's still just really uninteresting and dull. And I think what makes it even worse is nowhere in the world is interesting in this game. You know, one of the big strengths of an MMORPG is usually this giant world that's really interesting to explore. There's lots of different areas to go to. In this game, you've kind of got 4 overworld areas, and your quest is almost every time you go to them is just to go into a dungeon, which will just be a series of grey corridors that looks the same as every other dungeon, and just get to the end of it to get like some upgrade for your stupid robot friend. Like that's literally all you do in this game for the whole game is just get into the grey dungeons and get to the end of them. And it's just such a dull usage of this idea. It's really a shame that this is kind of what they came out with.
Shout out for the mission structure where you do go to get parts for your robot buddy. And every single time you do it, you face some giant boss with loads of health bars. And then you come out and you go, oh, so what do you have now, mate? Oh, I've got some new emotes. And I'm like, we went through all of that so you can do a new pose. Oh, thanks, mate. That's fantastic. Thanks for that. We should talk a little bit about the gameplay here. So essentially, Sword Art Online, despite its name, is very gun heavy. This is set in the Gun Gale Online universe, whatever the heck that is.
Yeah, that's kind of the game they're playing that's the game they're playing in the game, if that makes any sense. In the game,
yeah. So it's just chock full of guns and weapons, and there's loads of different types. And essentially, there's an auto aim, which pretty much locks onto everything. But if you want to aim more precisely, you can go down the hair triggers and actually, try and do some damage. That's basically it. The combat never develops beyond run around and shoot person.
Yeah.
All the way through. It gives you this grappling hook, which it has absolutely no use for at any point through the game, except to sometimes hit a button to open a door. That's literally, and they forgot to do that for 10 hours. I almost forgot that it was a thing until they suddenly went, oh no, you need to hit that. Oh yeah, thank you. I forgot because you told me to do it 10 hours ago.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I played the first chunk of this game months ago because again, I liked Sword Art Online and thought I'd give it a look. And then when I picked it back up a few weeks ago to finish it off, I literally thought the game had bugged out because I was in this room and I couldn't get through it without using the grappling hook because when I last played it, as you said, they kind of teach you the grappling hook for the first half an hour and then ignore it for the rest of the game. So I ended up looking online and clicking through a YouTube video to see how this other man solved the room, and then just saw him using the grappling hook, and I was like, oh, for God's sake. So they just don't use it. It's completely pointless, and they could have done something fun with it as well, but they just, didn't bother.
I mean, they give you all these skills and gadgets which you can use in battle. These are, on the whole, fundamentally useless, and worse still, this game is just bogged down in endless menus and text and options and density, which it does not need, to the point where 10 hours into the game, I had to use the actual Google search. How do I throw a grenade in Sword Art Online? That is legitimately bonkers that I had to Google that. I needed to Google earlier, how do I heal in Sword Art Online? And 3 hours into the game, I needed to Google, where is my health bar? Because I couldn't find it on this cluttered UI, which they have all over the place. It's such a dredge of systems and menus, like the worst Momorpagas are. Once again, nailed its subject genre. But this could have been streamlined out so much more effectively. And you're just left with these miserable, endless systems, which you'll never quite master because it means reading it in real depth. And that means listening to these characters, which you don't want to do. See, it's got two sides of the same coin. You don't want to listen to the dialogue, but if you don't, you won't know what's happening. I skip menus all the time because I'm skipping through dialogue and then it throws up an important menu and I've closed it before I've even seen it. It's just filled with this sort of inanity and nonsense that just makes it a joyless slog to play through.
Yeah, and then even, I mean, you're saying there about how it's full of all these, nonsense MMO menus that don't make any sense. Like that even extends to the actual character building in this game. Like, you as in most RPGs, you level up and then you can put different stats up like strength and dexterity and all that kind of stuff. And as far as I can tell, it basically does nothing. Like I got quite far in the game, and because this game has a horrible habit of making the main quest line outscale you in terms of levels really fast. Like by the time you get near the end, even though you've been playing the whole game, you end up about 10 levels under the level requirement for the next story quest. So at that point, I was trying to switch up my character because you can reallocate all the stats whenever you want. So I looked online, looked for some advice on the best sort of stats to put in, change my character from like a strength one to one that uses like dexterity and luck or whatever. And I tried about 5 different character builds with completely different stats. And I swear to God, the game was identical. Nothing changed in the way I played the game when I actually got back out there fighting people. It was just the same. Like maybe I'd have more health if I got the health stat a bit higher, but all the other stats seemingly just didn't make much of a difference at all. I was doing the same kind of damage. I was hitting the same kind of shots. My accuracy was pretty much the same. I just don't know why you would bother putting all that sort of stuff in your game if it doesn't really have any real effect on it. It just seems completely pointless.
And worse still, because the upgrades don't feel like they're giving you anything. You play this game, at no point do you feel like you're actually getting better at it or that you're destroying people. The enemies are always 10 levels stronger than you are, so you're always chipping away at them. It takes like 100 bullets usually to fell one person to finally put them down, which is endlessly frustrating because the reloads in this are painfully long. For some reason, the gun switch animation is a nightmare. This game hates switching guns. The dodge roll does not have enough length on it. The run, it involves a slow incremental increase in speed, which is fundamentally useless when you're trying to do something quickly. Your AI teammates are useful in terms of shooting things, but hideously stupid when it comes to trying to revive you if you've been hit because you're the only one doing any actual damage. So many times I died in this game because I go down, somebody runs over to me, and somebody who is shooting at them has a sliver of health, and I'm just screaming at him, kill him first. Just kill him first. And they just drop down and start trying to heal me and then die. And I just go, well, now you've fucked it, haven't you? You absolute idiots. So many times I've sworn at the characters in this game going, why are you people so useless? Why won't you just help me out? It's kind of that sort of AI pattern as well. It's just, there's a lot here about this game which really, really annoys me. And yet the core fundamentals of running around and shooting things, it's fine. It's not bad. It scratches that sort of repetitive itch in your brain that most gamers have, where they're kind of quite happy to just keep doing the same thing for 18 hours because we're simple people with simple minds. And it's enough. And at times it is enough. There's the odd fun boss fight with some decent boss design. Most of them are just shoot and hope for the best. But I remember one where whenever he jumped, I had to jump with him, otherwise I'd get hit with a massive shockwave. And that was pretty fun. I finally felt like there was some decent boss design getting in here. And there's moments of that throughout the game, but they're scattered and they're few and far between, and they're broken up with endless chunks of exposition to the point where you just want to scream at them to stop. And I don't know, man. This is a tough one to rate for me because I don't hate it, but I'm very, very hoping it will be over soon.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I kind of agree. It's a tricky one because when you talk about this game, there's very little to say that's positive because, as I said, other than quite an interesting idea for a game, everything else just kind of goes wrong. The menus are a mess, the story's a mess, there's too much text. We've been going on about it all here, and I don't have a lot of positives to say. But then also, as you said, fundamentally, it is entirely playable. It's not a mess. Like you're not playing it. It's just kind of a bit dull, right? Like you're not playing it thinking this is awful, this is a broken mess. You just kind of fall into a state of just like a trance of just monotonous kind of nothing. It's just I don't know. That's about it. Like
it hits that Mamorpica zone. That's what you do in those games. You just log in every day. You do the same thing. Numbers go up. And at the end of it, you just go, what happened? Am I okay? Did I completely phase out? And then you go and do something else. And that's kind of what I feel with Sword Art Online. I played it for like 8 hours yesterday. And I don't feel like I spent 8 hours doing anything yesterday. I just have this black hole where anything could have happened to me. I have no idea. It's that sort of gaming experience. It's perfectly fine, but I'd highly recommend you avoid it at the same time.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I mean, as I said, being that I've actually watched this show and I'm quite a fan of the earlier seasons and stuff, often you get games like this and you think, if you're not someone who's watched it or has any interest in it, you kind of think, oh, maybe a fan would really like it. Like, I'm a fan and I don't, so we can't even give that recommendation. It's not even a give this a look if you're a Sword Art Online fan, because it doesn't do anything interesting. It does nothing interesting with any of the characters from the show. The sort of side story, as you said, is literally just a bunch of random friends trying to get some parts for a robot. There's nothing. You're not going to get anything out of this as a fan, or if you're not a fan. There's just there's just no reason at all to play this entirely okay game.
So what would you give it then out of 10 if you had to?
I'd give it a 4. I just think it's not the worst thing we've played, but if I don't even like it, then I dread to think how other people feel about it. I've at least got some stock in this series, so I just can't see it being worth anyone's time.
Aye, and with about 5 hours, I'd say, to go, maybe a bit less, I'd probably give this a 5. It's the definition of bad average for me. It's perfectly playable, but it's not particularly good. But I will say it's given us the opportunity to talk about a 2-year-old niche Memorpaga single-player game, which nobody cares about and was barely reviewed for over 20 minutes. So God bless our stupid podcast.
All right, then. So moving on to our feature of the week. So this week, we're going to be looking at Game Pass games that have quick and easy achievements, because there's currently a Microsoft Rewards challenge, which you can find on your Xbox if you go to the Microsoft Rewards app. There's basically a challenge in there where once you activate it, from now until the 26th of January, they will give you a reward point for every gamer point you get, up to a limit of 10,000. So if you get 10,000 gamer score in the next couple of weeks, then they'll give you 10,000 points, which is about £10. So this is us giving you £10. You're very welcome for that.
It's a technicality. That's how we get them.
Post a little clip of that start bit of the show. We'll give you all £10. We'll have tons of new listeners. That'll be great.
But in a grift. It's a grift. We've grifted them all.
We've become 2K. Might as well get a roulette wheel with some microtransactions on it. It'd be lovely.
Welcome to the Beat the Sheet Casino, everyone.
Right then, yeah. So, okay. So what we've done here then basically is we've got a list of 10 games for starters, which are, to our mind, the fastest games in Game Pass for you to get a bunch of gamer score in. And then after that, I've just picked out a few extra ones that might be good for people who don't want to, sit with a guide in front of them, because, some people might just want some easy achievements for actually enjoying games. It's not the way we do things here, but I'm not going to judge our listeners who want to actually enjoy some games. So yeah, let's get rolling straight into these then. First game on the fast gamer score list we have here is Day of the Tentacle Remastered. This is a point and click, my favorite, of course. And yeah, with this game, basically, if you want to follow a guide, you can get the entire 1000 gamer score in around about 2 or 3 hours. And even if you don't want to follow a guide, you can probably get about 500 points for beating it, and it'll take about 4 hours. So both pretty good options. Again, it's not something I'm in any rush to be playing. I know you've played this one, right, Josh?
I played Day of the Tentacle. It's a good game. It's my favorite of Tim Schafer's point and clicks. I prefer it to Grim and Full Throttle, which I think will probably make an appearance on this list later on. But yeah, this is a good game, good title. I think you could probably get more than 600 to 700 if you're curious. If you want to do a blind playthrough, just be curious. You'll probably get a good 700 to 800 gamer score.
Yeah, not bad at all. All right, then. So next game, this is probably one of the easiest ones on here, is Fractured Minds, which is, it's basically just a half an hour game. It was made as a student project by one person, and even if you just play this game blind, you get 700 gamer score just for beating the chapters in the game. That'll take you about 20 to 25 minutes. And then even after that, if you just check the achievement descriptions for the other achievements, they're pretty self-explanatory for the most part. And you can just jump back into those levels for 5 minutes and get your full 1,000. So that is a super easy game to do for this challenge.
Yeah, I've already got the 1,000 on this. God, the problem for us here is that we played all these games because they're quick. So we've got the gamer score. What do we do for our free tenner? That's the problem. But Faction Minds, that's a decent game. I quite like that. We'll give that a go anyway. That's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It was good for what it was, absolutely. And I said half an hour. It's tough to argue with that for some achievements. I mean, that's £1 of your £10 there just for playing a bit of Faction Minds. Lovely stuff. All right, then moving on to another Tim Schafer point and click game. This one is, as Josh said earlier, Full Throttle remastered. So this is pretty similar to Day of the Tentacle. If you follow a guide, you can get the full 1,000 game score in a few hours, about 3 to 4. And from looking at the achievement list, you're looking at probably, again, about half of that if you play it blind, and it'll take you 4 hours to do it. So yeah, good option for both situations, really. I would be more inclined to play with a guide because I do not like these games, but nonetheless, it's another option if you can stomach more point and click.
It's meant to be good, Full Throttle. It's meant to be pretty fun. So maybe worth playing, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like the look of Full Throttle. It looks like a fun little weird point and click. Some kind of biker guy in it, I think. And yeah, it looks fun. But anyway, yeah, moving on. Another super easy one here. The Gardens Between. Now, this one will only take you about 2 hours to get the full 1,000 game score if you've got a guide. And if you want to just play this one blind, you can still get about 600 or 700 game score without a guide in a couple of hours. Most of the achievements on this one are just for... You basically finish levels in the game, and then there's these little memory boxes that show you like a memory of what the characters were doing. And you just kind of move them around with the analog stick until something happens and the achievement pops. So vast majority of the achievements are simple without a guide. You could even just play through it blind and then do level select to get some extra achievements afterwards. So yep, definitely a good option for this challenge.
I somehow missed pretty much all of those because I never knew to rotate the fin at the end. It just never, I only picked up on it on like the second to last bit. I was like, crap, was I meant to be doing this whole time? So I might go back to that myself and get the extra 500, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I could be wrong on this one, but I think you can actually just load up the memory boxes as well. I don't think you have to play the levels again. So you might actually be able to literally just go into those memories and spin them around a bit to get yourself some points. So that's not too bad at all. Moving on, we've already talked about this game today, but The Little Acre, which we reviewed in new editions. Again, if you follow a guide for this game, you can get the entire 1,000 game score in about 1 hour. One of the achievements is even for beating the game under an hour, so you're kind of going to have to do it in that time to get them anyway. And then even if you don't use a guide, it's a couple of hours and you'll probably get about half the achievements just naturally. So that's another good option. Although, again, another point and click, so you might be hitting your limit of point and clicks at this point.
Could be all points and clicked out by this time, but I've got my 1,000 G. I got my full gamer score for that bad boy last night. Thank you very much.
I annoyingly played it before I started the challenge, so that killed me a bit. I literally got the 1,000 gamer score, then went to my menu, and then noticed the Microsoft challenge. So I missed that 1,000, sadly.
Oh, you fool.
I know, just not on at all. Anyway, okay, moving on then. Finally, something a bit different is NHL 94 Rewind. We actually reviewed this on the show a good few weeks ago because it's in EA Play and it was new to the service. And yeah, this one really, all you need to do to get the vast majority of the gamer score is just win the Stanley Cup, which is basically just winning 3 matches in a row in the sort of only game mode that exists, because this is just a recreation of a very old NHL game. So yeah, it's not too bad to do that. You can even quit out if you're losing in a game and just load back in and you start at the semi-finals or the finals or whatever. Something I wish I'd realized before I actually just won the game properly. But yeah, so that's not too bad. You should be able to get 850 game score in a couple of hours on this one, and you shouldn't really need a guide for that. The last achievement is an absolute mess, though. I wouldn't recommend even trying it. You've got to I think you need to be losing the game, and then you need to sub your keeper out of the team and then equalize and then win without having a goalkeeper. So I don't fancy doing that in an ice hockey game, I'll be honest. But if you really want to get all the achievements, that's the only one that's going to be standing in your way.
Yeah, I couldn't get that one, but this game's great. Love NHL 94 Rewind. It's so much fun. It's worth playing anyway, so just give it a go. Really good game.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with that. Now, next one. This one is the easiest by a long distance on this, probably even including Fractured Minds. So I only discovered this one today, but there's a game called Surviving Mars. And this game, basically, if you install it, and then it has a mod menu, which is just built into the game. So you can download like official approved mods and stuff like that. If you just install 2 specific mods, then all the achievements just unlock on the menu. They all just unlock instantly. So you don't need to do anything at all. Simply enough, you just go to the True Achievements website. I'll put a link in the show notes for this, and just download the 2 mods it mentions, and you'll get 1,000 game score instantly. So outrageously easy.
Does that count as a completion on the sheet for us?
I don't think it does, sadly.
Does that not?
I really don't think it does. Another tip for this one as well is if you're a PC user, if you've got Game Pass for PC, the Windows 10 version of this game is separate. So you can do the exact same steps to get 1,000 game score on PC as well to get a total of 2,000. So that's pretty crazy. And also, if you're overly committed to this task, I think if you buy the DLC for the game, which you'd have to spend your own money on, then this will also unlock the DLC achievements that are another 500 gamer score. But then you'd have to spend about 20 quid on DLC to earn £10 for this challenge. So maybe that's not worth doing.
I'm not a businessman, but that's bad business.
Doesn't feel like the best of business. You are right. Okay, moving on then. We have a really fun game here, actually. The Tourist. We reviewed this one a long time ago on the show. But The Tourist is a really fun little 5-hour game. You shouldn't need a guide, really, to get any of the achievements. There's one achievement in it which is a bit tricky. There's like a surfing competition, and you have to do a really big spin. God. And that thing can take some serious time. But pretty much everything else in this game, which is just this charming little 3D adventure game with some puzzles and stuff, pretty much every other achievement is just for doing the normal quest in the game. So yeah, just enjoy a few hours in it and get a lot of points.
Yeah, screw that surfing trick, man. Oh, that's awful. It was ages to get. Although The Tourist, that's a good game. Yeah. Play The Tourist. What a game. Love that
real good game. I think I've got that down as an 8 on the sheet. I really enjoyed The Tourist. Thought it was
that's X and X optimized as well now, isn't it? Don't it play at like 120 frames per second or some nonsense?
Yeah, I think it
got a TV that can do it.
I think it renders in like 6K and samples down to 4K. Like just obscene. You gotta love that stuff. Okay, next one is The Walking Dead Michonne, which is kind of, I mean, it's kind of a continuation of the Walking Dead Telltale games, but obviously it's a bit of a spin-off in that it stars Michonne from the comic books and the TV show. This game is basically you just play the story and you get all 1,000 points. There's no secrets. There's nothing weird going on. You just power through 4 hours of the story and you'll get all the points. Sadly, it is one of the weaker, well, probably the weakest entry in the Walking Dead Telltale games. So it's not, you're not going to have the most fun, but it's easy points.
It's easy points. I think the other Walking Dead games follow a similar pattern. You can beat them in about 6 to 7 hours, though the time commitment is ramping up a bit at that point.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, and the final game on this, on the list of the fastest ones to do here is What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, this game will only take you about 2 hours, maybe 3, if you use a guide to get all of the points. But what we probably recommend, and I know Josh would, he's a big fan of this game, I'd probably recommend just doing a blind playthrough first for a couple of hours to actually enjoy the game for what it is. And then after you've done that, you can just use the chapter select function to quickly jump back into areas to get achievements. So you can quite easily get 900 out of the 1,000 by doing it that way, just doing a blind playthrough and then doing challenges afterwards. There's only one achievement, which is kind of for doing all these collectible type things during the story that you would miss if you did that. So yeah, I'd probably recommend that. But if you are just mercilessly after achievements, you could just use a guide to get all 1,000 in a couple of hours.
Don't you dare play What Remains of Edith Finch with a guide. Play it properly and then see what's left. That's a beautiful game. That's real top tier stuff. That should be played properly.
Yeah, you've got that as a 10, right, on the sheet?
I think it's 10. Yeah, I gave that a 10. So yeah, it's a real good game.
Can't be using a guide to ruin a 10 out of 10 game, surely. That's not something we'd recommend. But again, easy gamer score. That'll make people do some crazy things. Right then, so just wrapping this up, I thought I'd pick out a few other games that are good to play through if you're not using a guide and if you just want to actually just enjoy a quick game and just play through a story or whatever and get some easy points. So a few games in this list. We'll start it off with Carry On, which is a reverse horror Devolver Digital game where you play as a big horrible blob and eat people. This game only takes a few hours to beat, about 4 hours in total, and you'll get 650 gamer score just for beating the game. And then the remaining achievements are just for getting some collectibles that aren't too hard to find. You'll probably end up getting most of them naturally through the game anyway. So yeah, that's a good one for just some gamer score to get without having to stare at a guide all day. You can actually enjoy the game.
It's a good game too. Is Carry On. I like that game.
Yeah,
good, decent title. Give that one a go.
Completely agree. Right, next up on this list is Crackdown 3. Crackdown 3 is much better than people said Crackdown 3 is. And this is just another one of those games where if you just blast through the story and just do bits and pieces as you get to it, maybe you'll do the odd, race mission or you'll jump to collect some orbs. You'll come out of that with about 600 gamer score in around about 6 hours. So I think it's a pretty good return on your time for some achievements, and you'll have a lot of fun while you do it.
Didn't we put Crackdown at like 7th of our best Xbox One games?
It
of the
really
last
climbed up that list. That was, yeah.
I think at one point I was angling for it to be in the top 3 because I got a bit giddy.
Yeah.
I
mean, that list was a disaster, but yeah, nonetheless, it did end up quite high up on that list. All right, then just a few more of these. Next one is Gato Roboto, which is a really cool little kind of... It's basically just a 2D Metroid-like game. The game even looks like it's playing on basically a Game Boy. It's all black and white. You just play as a cat in a robot suit, pretty much. This is another one where the game's only a few hours long, and you'll get about 500 points just for beating it. So you don't necessarily need to worry about doing all the extra stuff to get the rest of the achievements. 500 is a pretty good return just for beating a game.
Not too bad at all, though. I imagine you might get a little bit addicted into this one. This is once you start hunting for stuff in Gato Roboto, you're gonna want to keep playing it because it's really fun, real good game. Not like the pile of crap which is coming up next.
I knew I'd get in trouble for putting this one on the list. But yeah, okay. So next game up is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is a game that I don't think it's an understatement to say Josh has been frothing at the mouth to just rip this game apart on this podcast since we started the show. But right now we're just talking achievements, so let's not get too deep into that. Senua's Sacrifice is about a 6 or 7 hour long game, and 900 of the game score is literally just for beating the story. The remaining hundreds for doing a bunch of collectible stuff that I wouldn't recommend bothering with. But yeah, 900 points just for going through. It's all unmissable achievements, so it's a good option for this challenge.
Yeah, but it's Hellblade, innit? And Hellblade sucks. Hellblade, you couldn't pay me £800 to play Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice again. I would literally rather eat my own feces than even think about Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice again, which is quite simply the worst game of the last console generation. And I can't believe I have to play whatever tragic follow-up comes from this game because of our stupid challenge. It's an absolute... It might be the time I quit, is when you force me to play this absolute trash again. Oh, what a piece of crap. Anyway, next game.
I wonder if our listeners will be able to tell that you've been holding that in for a while. Wow. But yeah, nonetheless, yeah, just, a bunch of easy achievements playing the story. And even if the game isn't great, the audio stuff in it is fantastic. You play that game with a pair of headphones, it's pretty cool. So,
and if you play it with the TV off, it's even better.
Oh, right. Final game here is Rare Replay, and Rare Replay's on this list because there's just some really easy achievements on this thing. So Rare Replay, for those who don't know, is a collection of a lot of old Rare games from pretty much the last 30 years, and almost every game in the set has an achievement just for turning it on. So if you just go through the games and pop them on and, have a play of them if you want, but if you don't, just quit straight away, you'll come out with about 500 points just for the sake of starting up a few games. So that's pretty good. And while you're there, I would definitely recommend playing quite a few of them, particularly the ones from the N64 era. There's some really good stuff in there. So
give the Ghoulies a go. Give the Grabbed by the Ghoulies. That's what I want to play on Rare Replay.
I mean,
give me those ghouls.
I'd always recommend Blast Core because that's in this, and it's one of my favorite games ever. I gushed about that game on episode 1 of this show, so yeah, that's a good time.
It's even got Perfect Dark, which according to Andrew is better than Doom. Oh man.
Oh, it's a good game. Right then, well, yeah, those are pretty much all of our recommendations there. You should be able to get hopefully quite a few points from that, and yeah, there's your £10 from us. You're welcome. You don't need to get us anything back. It's fine.
Well, you could do. You could like, share, and subscribe. Did they do that on podcasts? I don't know.
Yeah, just do all those nice things. Like, share, subscribe. Tell people to listen, force them to if you must. Just do some of that stuff. That's a good return for our £10 of investment, I feel.
Scream it out your nearest window. Get a window and start screaming about us. That's what I want.
Oh, the day I have my windows open, I just randomly hear "Beat that shade" shouted from someone else's house. That's the day I'm happy. I've done it. We've made it, Josh. All right, then. So to close out the show, we just have a couple of news items to get to. And the first one here is that Nintendo have acquired Next Level Games, which is pretty big news because Nintendo, it's not really in their usual MO. They don't tend to acquire people too often. I mean, Next Level Games, for what it's worth, have basically been a part of Nintendo in my mind for the last decade anyway. So it almost feels like it's just Nintendo buying Nintendo. But yeah, Next Level Games are the studio behind Mario Strikers and Mario Strikers Charged. And then they also made the last 2 Luigi's Mansion games. So they're a studio that have got some really good pedigree. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, I just wanted to put this story in so we could talk about Mario Strikers a bit, really, because that game is great.
God, I love Mario Strikers Charged Football. That's a real good football game.
Oh, it's just
probably the best football game of all time. And I don't even say it with a hint of exaggeration. It's the best football game of all time. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mario Strikers Charged is my favorite football game of all time. I'd have to assume we've played near 1,000 games of that against each other in our time. And
some before we even met, just online randomly. Just both haunting the leaderboards at like the top 10 at 2 a.m. UK time, because that's when they flipped or something. It's just ludicrous.
It's one of my favorite stupid memories. That is, like you said, the sort of striker of the day was always showed on the homepage, and it would loop over at like 2 a.m. And yeah, I think I had at least 2 or 3 occasions where I just start playing it from 2 a.m. and just not stop until my face was on the home screen, which sometimes took about 10 hours. But God, I love some Mario Strikers. That game is great. And yeah, I hope that this somehow leads to us getting another one, even though it has no impact on that.
Even though it'll almost certainly be another Luigi's Mansion, which is also great, because Luigi's Mansion 3 was good. I love that game.
That game was very good.
Gooigi, man. What a dude.
Yeah.
I want Gooigi like gummy bears. Like, can Nintendo get me some of them? Can they make me some actual candy sweets?
I would be all over that, actually.
Gooigi. I'd buy a pack of them. Filled with goo or something like that. Nintendo, hit me up if you want to steal my sweet ideas. I've got more for you. I can come up with more.
And then while we're there, why don't we put Gooigi in Mario Strikers Charge too? That'd be a great place for Gooigi. You can have some special moves where he just goos into the ground and comes back out in a different position, probably around the goalkeeper, because that game was all about screwing the goalkeeper over. So,
you have a real good sliding tackle, because he could like stretch himself out to like pick the ball off somebody's feet. He could be like a defensive powerhouse. That's what Gooigi should be. Yeah,
I mean, that game's demanding to be made right there. I hope you're listening, Nintendo, because, I mean, come on. It has to be done. But anyway, let's move on then. Just one last quick bit of news, which is, something that actually has some Game Pass implications. So we found out a bit this week on the next game that InXile are making. Now, InXile are the studio behind the Bard's Tale and the Wasteland series, which are series that we're deeply terrified of on this show, because they're just not for us. They're not our kind of games. They're insanely long, and we need to beat every game in Game Pass. So, largely terrified of InXile normally. But they've had some job listings over the last week put up for a new game they're working on, and it clearly sounds like it's going to be some kind of action RPG first-person shooter deal. So, probably looking at something a bit in the vein of Cyberpunk, or maybe elements of Fallout, I guess. And I'm happy with this. This is more something I'd actually want to play. So yeah, this is good news.
This is weird news though, isn't it? Because for us, it's good news, because I'd rather play this than Wasteland or The Bard's Tale. But there was a real niche audience for those sort of titles. And InXile were really scratching that itch for those people. And instead they've been brought into the Microsoft wheelhouse to make a game genre we've got about 1 million of. So we don't really need another variant of it. Good news for us, because I'd much rather play this tedious, stagnant genre rather than Wasteland. But I can imagine there'll be a few fans of that studio going, are they actually being best served here doing this sort of thing? Or could we continue pumping out those niche sort of games which they're known for and which a certain player base, you ain't getting them anywhere else? Let's be honest.
Yeah, that is true. I was definitely just looking at this from a entirely selfish viewpoint, but that's yeah. I mean, I imagine they'll be bringing some of their sort of personality from the Wasteland and Bard's Tale series into this game. Much to our horror. So I imagine it's going to be something more of a hybrid, maybe, of their usual style of game with a bit of FPS action, maybe. And yeah, we'll see how it is. I mean, whatever it is, it's undoubtedly going to be day one Game Pass, which is always a win for everyone. So yeah, be interesting to see how that develops over time.
I imagine whatever it is, it'll be proper re-snarkled.
Hopefully they're done with the resnarkling days. That's dark day. I still need to finish that resnarkle as well. That's going to be rough.
You'll never finish that resnarkle. That's just never going to get beat.
One of these days, it'll be the final game on the sheet. Although it won't be, because that'll be Bard's Tale 4. But nonetheless, anyway, that is the end of our news and the end of the show this week. So in the meantime, if you'd like to catch us on social media, you can find us at Beat the Sheet on Twitter. If you want to drop us an email about anything at all, really, we're happy to hear from you at beatthesheetpodcast@gmail.com. And if you could drop us a 5-star review or any kind of review, really, on your podcast platforms, that would be much appreciated. That's really useful for us getting the word out about the show. So until next time, I'm Andy Wood, and I have edged my way up to 63% on the sheet now.
Very impressive. And my name is Josh Stevenson, and I'm going to say I'm on 52% because I'm 0.04% of 52%. And screw not rounding that up. I beat 5 games this week. I deserve a percentage point. 52%. Thank you very much.
All right, then. So from me, Andy Wood, and Josh on 51%, this is the end of the show. So thanks for listening, everyone.